friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average babes come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A place where being yourself is the ultimate goal, where your opinion, your story, and your individual experience matters. Join me, your host B, and my guests for real and raw talks every week, laying it all out there so we can all help each other learn more, grow deeper, and evolve collectively. Now keep in mind, as a disclaimer, no one here is an expert and no one is giving any advice. This is strictly our opinions, thoughts, feelings, and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. I hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy. I am the host of the show. And today you guys are on episode 204, Keeping Up with Canada, part 12. Holy shit. 12, a dirty dozen of Canadian scandals and bullshit we are upon. Just kidding, kind of, not really. Anyways, guys, I'm so sorry last month we missed a Keeping Up with Canada episode. We were celebrating 200 episodes, so I decided to pause for a month because as usual, the political world out there is a little bit nuts and exhausting, and sometimes we just need to take a break. But today we are back and hopefully going to have a short-ish episode because as we lead up to the holiday season, I know everyone is busy. Everyone's doing their things. We're stressing the fuck out. We're getting excited. We're being hyped. So I do have 3 different topics today I want to talk about. 2 I'm going to get into a bit deeper, and 1 I just want to put a pin in it because I do want to do a deeper dive on one of them, and it's just on the topic in general, not necessarily to Canadian politics, but I do want to loop in American and Canadian politics into that topic. But yeah, today we're going to have 3 different topics of what the fuck is going on in our country. But before we do, I just want to remind you, if you are watching on YouTube or Rumble, to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Comment if you can. I really appreciate it. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure to turn on notifications as well, and you can leave reviews there, a couple star review, leave a comment if you're feeling so Christmassy. Your babe would appreciate it very much. And if you want to find me, you can find me currently on Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at the Be Real Babe or the Be Real Babe podcast. Okay, as mentioned, 3 topics of Canada. And you guys, next season is going to be, I'm going to try a little bit harder to be a little bit more middle ground and try and bring people in from all sides of the spectrum, because sitting back and watching the American federal election, it always gives me time to reflect on essentially what's going to come up for ours. So we could see there's certain topics that are coming up that are already going from what would be the American politic conversation of like MAGA and now up to Maple MAGA. And although I've been very clear on the show, and I always will be, that I will be voting conservative, I would consider, I guess, myself Maple MAGA. But at the same time, I just hope that you can put that aside and just listen to what I'm saying. And if you want to be on the show to have conversations, healthy debate, and just teach me stuff, I'm more than happy. This is just from my experience, the people around me, the things that I know and that I'm reading, with the understanding that I don't know shit about fuck, and understanding that algorithms are built a certain way. Echo chambers do exist. But at the same time, just in the bigger argument is liberals have, had their time. Let's switch it up and see. So, but also open to different opinions. Okay. So I just want to preface that, and I will always be honest and real with you guys, that just my views and my morals aligned more with conservative views. At one point I was liberal, and I would say most people would say they probably were liberal. And over the last couple of years, that has developed about something very different, I'm sure, in the States as it has in Canada. So I do know that that is a big interesting point that I want to talk about next season, is like, how does this political move, right? Like, how do we change? Has it always been this way? Do we always cycle around where we, liberals used to be super anti-government and anti-establishment, anti-medicine. Now it's very pro for all of that because maybe there's more progression on those sides. Like, where is that coming from? Is it because maybe we've had too much progression? So people are like, okay, let's dial it back and be a little bit more conservative on things. Now that we see that if we just run on maybe emotions instead of like, whatever time, I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. So, with that being said, let's talk about our three topics. So, today we're going to talk about firearms, abortion rights, and talking about the slush fund and current corruption within the House and our current government. Allegedly, supposedly, do not sue me censorship. So, one thing I do want to say, guys, it is a lot more difficult than it ever has been to look up stuff. I do want to preface that I find it very frustrating with all the censorship laws that we've talked about in the past coming in and going through Google and trying to do as much unbiased research as possible, knowing that I'm blocked from a lot of things. And I think season 9, I'm going to have to invest in a VPN so I can, not go through this. But let's start off. I really want to dive a little bit deeper into the gun laws and literally the legislation that just came out. We'll have a little listen here as well of that announcement. But let's read here a news article coming out of Global News. A lawful gun owners feel cheated by new federal firearm ban. So just to refresh and to be quite honest, you guys, I'm not a gun enthusiast by any means. I would say probably prior to the pandemic, I was definitely more of a like not anti-gun, but just like not my thing. Not really sure why people are so obsessed with them, but that's cool. We don't have to love everything the same. Understanding it for protection and hunting and all that kind of stuff, but never fully understood the excitement of it. They kind of terrify me, especially back in the day. I was really small, so anytime I did shoot them, I would almost like hurt myself. And if you know me in real life, you know I'm clumsy as fuck. So I think we can all agree that I'm probably not the best person to hold a gun. Maybe after I get a little bit more agile in boxing, we'll pick up gun shooting. But so it's not something that I'm necessarily pro guns. I'm not anti guns, but I'm definitely anti government and stepping in and in my opinion, putting safeguards in place, quote unquote, to help prevent shootings and stuff like that and crime where it feels like for the most part, that's not the place that people need help in. I feel like removing guns from law abiding citizens, they're not generally the ones that are going to be doing this, right? Just in my opinion. Again, I don't know everything, but from what I'm seeing, it's usually criminals or, people that have extreme mental health issues, or in poverty or, feeling very reactive and not able to it feels like they're trapped, right? And feel like as time goes on, and maybe that's why they're doing this, as time goes on and Canada gets harder to live in and there's more people here than we've ever seen before that are in dire needs than ever before. We're probably going to see obviously more rise in crime, which we've seen, which I do want to talk about in the next episode of Keeping Up with Canada, the crime rates. But is the gun bans really doing anything to stop a lot of the crime or the mass shootings, right? So if we just go look at a quick Wikipedia, so on May 1st, 2020 is when the initial um, mass shooting, the worst one in Canadian history in Portapique, Nova Scotia. The government then prohibited 1,500 makes and models of assault rifles. And then now again in 2024, more than 2,000 models and variants are now prohibited. And that's what the government just announced. And again, I am not saying that I know the answer, okay? And I am not saying that it is not tragic when there is a shooting, or I am not saying any of those things. I am just questioning and asking your opinion if you think that these laws, again, to law abiding citizens, and then taking away from people to be able to protect themselves in a case of a burglary and all that, like criminals are gonna criminal. They're gonna find means of getting guns illegally. And unfortunately, with the way that our system works here, they'll be out very quickly and back on the street. So it's not really like we have great laws and a justice system that are putting people away and they're not getting back on the streets and reoffending. No, no, no. They are. So they're not the ones accessing guns. And then you're disarming Canadians that are trying to defend their family and all that. Especially I've seen the increase in Ontario, but that's for another one. But if you go back and you just go to, again, hard topic, you guys, but we need to talk about it. If we go back to mass shootings, and obviously compared to the States, I feel like Canada is not as known as having these, but they still happen. And just to be honest here, a mass shooting looks like it could be anywhere from in Canada what they're registering on here. The lowest one is 4 and the highest ones being 26. That was in July 2012 in Toronto, Ontario. Um, 2 people died, 24 were injured. And then this one that I was recently mentioned, 23 had passed and 3 were injured, making 26 in the Nova Scotia shooting in 2020, again, where that ban came in. And again, I'm not saying that no bans should happen, or I just think, again, are we doing the right things? Was just banning guns enough? Because if you continue down the road here, obviously for a little bit, we're seeing 2021. Keep in mind, this is pandemic time. So I think it's a little bit hard as well. Data is going to be a little bit different because most people were at home, less people were traveling, things were kind of in a locked state. So, but we gear up to 2022 after, a year or two of the pandemic, we're seeing 6 different ones in 2022. And then prior to 2020 in the big ban, you see there was 7 in 2017. So although, yes, did that have a decrease in them? It looks like it. I'm not going to deny that. I'm always going to be honest. But in 2022, shit just gets fiery again. And then in 2023, we're seeing 5. And in 2024, very luckily, thank goodness, we've only seen 2. And that's, I'm not sure what has spurred this ban. I'm not sure if there was threats. I couldn't find anything that happened recently. Again, not dismissing the people that got shot up until now in their situations. I'm not saying that. I would actually like to hear from y'all if you're in that situation. Do you feel like gun banning is the right answer? That's just my question, right? So here we go to what's happening right now. The federal government has expanded its ban on firearms Thursday, adding 324 makes and models of guns prohibited weapon list, and lawful gun owners in Alberta feel that they're being unnecessarily targeted. The move follows the May 2020 ban, as mentioned, of 1,500 makes and models of the firearm, including the AR-15, the Ruger Mini 14. Sorry, I probably butchered that. Not a gun owner. The number grew to more than 2,000 by November of this year as new variants were identified. Like, so we just didn't know about these guns. They're just like a new ice species. Like, I don't understand this. Again, I don't know shit about fuck, so it's probably easy and I'm just dumb. The federal government says it's working with provinces, territories, and police on planned buyback of prohibited weapons from individual owners. It has already a pilot project on collecting banned firearms from businesses. So allegedly, I believe that the buyback, from what I understand, I don't know, again, go check this out yourself. From what I hear is that these guns are going to be given to the Ukraine, if I hear correctly. Um if I heard, I haven't seen that published um anywhere, of course, because it's not going to be, again, a lot of the stuff is like, it's not that I don't want to share it. It's, TikToks are great and all those things, but I feel like that's where most people jump back from. So if I could pull that from something that individuals who believe in mainstream media, and it's like, look, it's even on mainstream media, but apparently that's going to happen, and there's going to be a huge buyback, and there's going to be a grace period. So if you did buy these, of course you're going to have some time to give it back, but you're eventually going to have to. And I just think that's absolutely insane. And for other situations like Lethbridge, Justin Thompson was one of the Canadians who are handpicked to compete in the World Pistol Caliber Carbine competition in Czech Republic next spring, but with the new ban in place, he can no longer practice and is now unsure if he can even compete. We work hard, we're passionate, and now it's just been taken away from us. Another situation. Love it, government. Thanks for always doing that. Not. The federal government says the new ban is part of its commitment to tackle gun crime and keep communities safe, but competitive shooters say it overlooks action shooting and targets lawful gun owners. Exactly. And again, shit is getting crazy. Okay. In my opinion, I would like more people that would know how to, run guns and take care of them and be safe with them and use them over people that don't. Taking things away doesn't stop the criminals. Do we not understand that? That most of the time it's criminals doing the crimes. Okay. It's not fucking hunters. It's not fucking family people. They're just having something because crime is so crazy that someone could just break into your home. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm not saying shooting and killing people is the right thing, but maybe on his hand or his foot, or even if you're literally going to defend yourself, you should be able to. Hence why we are boxing, so at least we can use our fists, right? So yeah, the Canadian Coalition of Firearm Rights said the announcement was a typical Liberal Party divide and conquer politics, which I'm sorry. Yes. Alberta Justice Minister Mickey Avery said the provincial government strongly opposes the arbitrary reclassification of firearms in the federal government's wasteful, ineffective, and repeatedly delayed program to compensate these firearms. We. The newly banned firearms share the same technical characteristics as those prohibited in May 2020. Okay, it means that they can no longer legally be used or sold in Canada and can only be transferred under limited circumstances. Love that. So, of course, those limited circumstances is going to be for them, of course. Officials made it clear that additional makes and models could be added to the list of firearms, saying an expert panel will provide advice on guns that are still on the market. Oh, which ones are we allowed to have? For instance, the SKS rifle, which has been used in shooting sprees, remains legal. Quoi? Federal Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc said a decision on the firearm used by many Indigenous people for hunting would be made by February before the next phase of buyback program. Okay, so we're taking from them again. Of course, of course, of course, of course. Late last year, Parliament passed a government bill that cemented restrictions on handguns, increased penalties for firearm trafficking, and aimed to curb handmade ghost guns. Yes, putting more restrictions on things does eliminate backyard stuff. 100% look at drugs. um, the government says it's working to fully implement the bill with remaining provisions to come early in the new year. Oh, some more. Oh, great. Okay, we love that. We love that. Okay, so now let's hear from them themselves. I sped this up because this was the slowest human being speaking possible on planet.
Can do to honor the memories of those we lost in mass shootings is to act on gun control and to restrict access to the very weapons used to commit these horrible crimes. Our goal is to ensure that no community, no family is devastated by mass shootings in Canada again. That's why today, as Rachel said, we're building on the historic advances we've made since 2015 by taking further action. Today, the government is adding a further 324 unique makes and models of assault-style firearms to the list of prohibited firearms in Canada. This prohibition takes effect immediately. This means these firearms can no longer be legally used, sold, or imported in Canada and can only be transferred or transported under extremely limited circumstances.
Okay. And what does this mean for
The
people?
government has introduced an amnesty that is currently in force and expires on October 30th, 2025 to protect individuals who legally purchased these firearms prior to the ban. This amnesty period will protect these individuals from criminal liability as they take steps to come into compliance with the law. During the amnesty period, there is an exception to allow Indigenous peoples exercising a right under Section 35 of the Constitution, as well as those who use firearms for sustenance hunting, to continue to use their now prohibited firearms to hunt, if previously non-restricted, until a suitable replacement can be found.
So what I hear is we're just going to keep going with that, and we're not going to stop. And again, I'm not saying that I know anything. I just know that this is a big talking point, and a lot of people are very upset about this because, as mentioned, did those laws change anything there? Did it stop it? No. Did it maybe make it harder? No. Yes, I hope so. I would hope so. Like, yes, I agree. But is it access to the weapons that is initially the problem? Why aren't more things being talked about? Maybe they are. Maybe I'm not a part of them. Can you share that with me? Is there conversations about who's doing this, why they're doing it? Why aren't we having conversations about how everyone's mental health is in the drain due to the economy that we're in and the state that everything's in? And why isn't there more support about mental health? Is that being looked at? I haven't found it, but again, I understand that there's echo chambers and there's things that I don't know and understand. So I'm very open to that, to understanding. If you see more, please let me know because I would really like to learn more about this. Again, not being a gun person, but wanting to understand how this alone is going to solve that problem when it just seems that it didn't, and it also disarms law-abiding citizens that are just doing them for hunting to feel protection. It's not like, or just going out doing it for sport, like why is that? Why is the government so worried about that? I struggle to understand why they truly care about us in this sense when we're not talking about crime rates, we're not talking about housing, we're not talking about grocery bills. Like, oh my gosh, you're going to save GST on your groceries that you don't pay GST on to begin with. Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm, again, not smart in these areas, just regular everyday Canadian. It doesn't make sense to me. So the other thing, while I was going through TikTok, and I seen a lot, and again, I want to preface this with I understand that everyone has their own experiences, their own lenses, their own education, their own situations, and their own feelings when it comes to abortion. And I know that that is a big, big, big talking point down in the States. That was one of the biggest political, I would say, debates, and one of the biggest ones of all time. And this is why I don't want to dive deeply into it in this episode, because I do feel like it deserves more than a 5-10 minute segment on keeping up with Canada. But one big thing I want to dive into is what I'm seeing from, again, I wanted to try and look on both sides here, especially on TikTok. A lot of people are saying that Canadians are going to lose their rights if Polyev gets in office, and conservatives are going to squash that, just like the Republicans are going to do in the States. Now, I do not believe that the Republicans are going to do that in the States personally. I feel like, again, I just mean this kindly, whatever Trump was going to do in that regard, he has already been a part of or was done when he was president. And again, echoing that in the States, that if Kamala was going to do anything different, she would have done it when she was in office. Equally so, if Trudeau was going to provide more and the Liberals were going to provide more and open that up more, they would have done so in the last 8 terms. So I don't believe that that's in jeopardy, but again, open to discussions, to new things and new thoughts and ideas once being presented. But from what I can see, I just see people saying that they are, and taking that out of context, because again, it is such a big political conversation in the States. So if you there vote for Trump and then you're Canadian, or you would have voted for Trump, apologies, you're then going to be against women's rights. And I guess for myself, being someone that is infertile, that has seen that quote unquote clump of cells, pro choice people like to refer to, I just have a different view of that and a different experience, although I can understand that other people do as well, and I can be compassionate and empathetic, hence why I don't believe that there should be an entire ban. And I'm just going to say my stance on this right now, that I do not believe that it should be banned, but I do believe that we are lacking informed consent, we are lacking education, we are lacking support for those that do go through it, and we are lacking a preventative measure. And I'm not just talking birth control, because that is also the devil. I'm talking about how our bodies work, and how we need to be teaching kids, and not just a stupid sex ed class, and like in a real honest to goodness holistic way of how that affects you in your real life and your finances, economically, physically, biologically, all those things. And I don't necessarily believe that maybe at a teenager level that abortion um, needs to be shown, but I do believe that a lot of people change their mind once they do actually, and I'm not going to get into this episode, but once you get into the graphic understanding of the physicality of what happens, that is where I kind of changed and was like, okay, maybe we do need to have some boundaries on this, because again, when is it passed off from human right to women's rights to men's rights? Because I know a lot of people, and this is an unpopular opinion, believe that men don't have any rights, when unfortunately without the man, for the most part, you wouldn't have that baby. So I do believe that they should have some rights. And again, we'll get into these bigger conversations, and I'm not saying that, there's a lot of nuance here, so don't take it and clip me here. But again, there's no opting out for dads if they decide that they're not ready to support, they're not ready to be a good father. There's conversations that need to be had about what their options are, and or if they want to keep the baby and the mom decides not to. Again, we respecting her but not his, and this is again why I want to have a bigger conversation. I'm just saying there's a lot more sides of the story I feel that we're not being talked about in this political debate. So I'm hoping that in the coming months we can kind of pull back the disagreement, understand that everyone's coming through at a different lens, be compassionate and listen, and see where we can all come to a middle ground of responsibility and personal responsibility in your sexual lives, understanding some people do not have control over that and there's awful situations, understanding that there's medical components to that, right? Like this is a multifaceted situation, not white or black, okay? So but from what I'm seeing, that there's, again, of course, it's being debated always. And from what I'm hearing is that Polyev said that he is for freedom of choice and rights. And then there are some words that get taken out of context, which I understand. And maybe they are within context, right? I am just one person here, guys, of what I feel. Again, mentioning through the lens in which I see this, being someone who has been very hurt, who does struggle to conceive and have a baby. It's very hard for me to get on board with late term abortions or abortions for birth control. Well, I can also 100% be compassionate and want the ability to be able to save my life, or if it was done in a way where I wasn't in consent to the act that led to that. At the same time, I would like to honor and challenge all of us to be more understanding to our bodies, and having personal accountability. We're magical creatures, being able to do this. Those that have done it, I know I'm at the time. It doesn't sound like it's a lot of fun. It sounds terrifying sometimes, you guys. But I understand. I understand. The big contention part, and I could see all sides. So this is why I really hope to facilitate bigger conversations about this. So if you are wanting to come on the show and talk about this, whether you've had your experience, I know a ton of people, you guys, that have had them, and this is where I think my compassion, because I understand the need, I understand all of that. I also understand and know those that have their parents were consenting and they were born, and they were really glad that they were born, right? So I've literally been very blessed to have known people in all sides of this conversation. So I feel like I do come at it at a very middle ground. And so I would say that if the conservatives do get in and they do decide to push it back, I will be there with you pushing back on those things too, and in the ways that's appropriate. Again, the conversation needs to go to more support around this in mental health and informed consent when it comes to these services. And I feel like that is where they're going. That is where I feel like conservatives for the most part are going to lean. Now again, of course, you're going to get the people that are super pro-life. I don't know that we should always just expect everybody to be one side or the other. I think we need to honor each other from coming from both sides of the spectrum here, and being compassionate and coming and working together. I think that's true adulthood and true community, not judging and hating and shaming, but opening up and listening to all sides of the story. So from what I'm reading, from many different, because that's obviously a big talking point, and a lot of especially liberal leaning um, reporters are trying to like get him on this, because he has done some certain things, or some people within his party have, let's say, more conservative or closed views than him, but he does keep repeating that he has absolutely no interest in changing anything with that. If anything, it looks like there might be some places still, from what I read, that I believe it was New Brunswick, that is still doesn't seem to have an abortion clinic out there. And again, quote me if I'm wrong, guys. This is just from an article out of CTV News, and we all know how they can be. And that there's also work that could be done within the current administration within these rights as well, to provide that safety of care. So when you go to their platforms, it is saying, and again, you guys, please provide me the information. I understand what I'm searching is very difficult up here. What I'm searching could be tailored to myself. So please provide that with me, because I would love to fight that with you. At the same time, I would hope that you would fight for the conversation to change a little bit more through those that are more pro-life, and understanding the pain that we have gone through when you say certain things like it's just a clump of cells. It's, like those things are very painful to individuals. So I think for right now, like I said, I want to just kind of give a highlight to this as a big conversation that's going on, that please provide me if you do find anything contrary. From what I can see, the platform, nothing is going to change in that aspect. Okay. So, yeah, maybe there needs to be more education, which is what I think. There needs to be more informed consent. Women need to know, and I feel like it shouldn't be like a rushed thing unless it's an emergency. And I think there should be the mental health support that it is out there. That's just my personal opinion. I know that's kind of a heated one, and apologies if that was upsetting, this close to the holidays. I go through it myself, but at the same time, it's just like, unfortunately, there's not always a good time, and we need to normalize having these hard conversations and coming together and working together to make Canada the best place it can be for everyone collectively. Not everyone is going to be happy about everything, but could we come to an understanding? And I find when we hear more from other humans and we personalize these situations, they're a lot more empathy involved. So that's what I'm really hoping for, and to bring more in the show in 2025 is, let's do a middle ground. What's people on both sides here, so we get both stories. We know where I'm going to land. We always know I'm going to come in that lens. I'm not lying about that. But I'll try my best. Okay, next one. Of course, more money leaking out of our country, and we don't know where it is, and no one cares where it is. And well, we know, but then we don't care, we don't act on it. So like, does it matter? But we're going to be able to getting a tax break on those groceries you don't pay GST for anyway. Anyways, so what the fuck is she talking about, we ask. Okay, so what are we talking about? We are talking about, this is from the Office of the Auditor General of Canada's website. Okay, I'm not making this up. This is not conspiracy. June 4th, 2024, a report from the Audit General Karen Hogan tabled today in the House of Commons concludes that there were significant lapses in the Sustained Development Technology Canada's governance and stewardship of public funds. Shocking. In addition, that was my words, not theirs. In addition, Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada did not sufficiently monitor the compliance with the contribution agreements between the Foundation and the Government of Canada. From March 1st, 2017 to December 31st, 2023, that's 6 years, the Foundation approved $856 million of funding to the 420 projects. The audit reviewed 58 of these projects. Okay, keep this in mind, okay? $856 million in funding to 420 projects. Within those 420 projects, 58 of them were reviewed. And here's what they found. Okay, first let's talk about, I guess it's going to talk about the foundation. So this foundation supports new technologies that promote sustained development under 4 streams: startup, scale up, ecosystem, and seed. The audit found that the foundation awarded $59 million to 10 projects that were ineligible in 3 of the 4 streams. These projects did not meet requirements set out in the contribution agreements between the government and the foundation. In addition, the audit estimated that 10% of the remaining startup and scale-up projects approved during the audit period were also ineligible because, for example, they did not support the development or demonstration of new technology, or the projected environmental benefits were overstated. Y'all, listen. That's $59 billion. That's a lot of money. I'm sure a lot of you could use that money, but it's going to ineligible projects that aren't even what they're for under their own guidelines. The foundation's records show that in 90 cases, conflict of interest policies were not followed. The foundation did not have an effective system to maintain disclosures of conflict of interest and related mitigating actions. Conflict of interest were connected to approval decisions representing nearly $76 million in funding awarded to the projects. Y'all, that is well over. That's just under 2 million now. Sorry, 200 million that we're just fucking around out of the 856 million that we know. The Canadian Foundation for Sustainable Development Technology Act requires the foundation to have a group of 15 members separate from its board of directors to represent Canadians and appoint most of the foundation's board. The audit found that the Sustained Development Technology Canada did not comply with its enabling legislations because it only had 2 such members instead of 15. Only 2 that are separate from the board. Is that what I'm reading? Because it only had 2 members, such members out of, like all organizations funded by Canadian taxpayers, Sustainable Development Technology Canada has a responsibility to conduct its business in a manner that is transparent, accountable, and compliant with legislation. Our findings show that when this doesn't happen, it's not always clear that the funding decisions made on behalf of Canadian taxpayers were appropriate and justified. Quoi? Okay, so there's quite a few people that are talking about this, which is great. Again, we're looking at conservative people. which is amazing. Thank y'all for stepping up and doing this shit because it actually blows my mind. But here's some tweets about the situation. One from Larry Brock. Now, Larry Brock is the Brantford Brand in Ontario MP. He joined the House in 2021. Before this, he was an assistant to the Crown Attorney. So he's been in politics for quite a long time, it seems like. And he on Twitter has been talking about this quite a bit. And he said, breaking, the president of Trudeau's 1 billion Green Slush Fund, which is speaking about this, fund resigns over corruption scandal. Senior government officials said that the fund was giving away free money and was sponsorship scandal level kind of giveaway. More to come. So again, like, okay, so let's rewind just alone on the show that we've talked about, the We scandal. Did anybody get in trouble for that? Did anybody get any money back from taxpayer wasted dollars into their family? No. SSE Lavalin, all of that, they got charged. They've got slapped on their hands. Did anything happen to the Liberal government? No. Okay, now we're coming up to this slush fund. People can't seem to tell us where a bunch of money has gone. Again, they only reviewed how many? Let's go back. How many did they review? They only reviewed 58 out of the 420. So aren't you guys curious? But apparently the Auditor General declines looking into it deeper, saying she doesn't expect things more to be found after her first audit. How do you not think so when there's still just over 350, whatever, just under 400 left of projects? That okay, but what's happening here, right? So is anything happening? And so there is another MP, the MP from St. Albert in Alberta, who Michael Cooper, who has was elected in 2015, then re-elected in 2019, and then again in 2021. So brother's been around for a while. Thank you, Michael, for fighting for us. But he tweeted out, PMJT Minister Stephen Guilbeault is profiting off of the Green Slush Fund corruption. His former boss was on the board and funneled 40 million plus to companies her firm invested in. Gilbert, I can't even say his name. Gilbert, has shares in the firm. No wonder the libs are working so hard to cover up this massive scandal. I have to learn how to say his name. I feel like I sound like Jim Carrey when I say names like I don't. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to be rude. So again, like, how much money goes unaccounted for? How much money goes away to places that really, at the end of the day, don't need us? Aren't there other places in the world that are rich and have stuff? What is going on? Is anybody else not upset about this? And the censorship on social media is absolutely insane. It is so hard to find shit these days. I honestly feel thankful for TikTok because this is where I find, and Twitter, because this is where we have to find all this stuff. Another tweet out from Michael Cooper, not 1 cent of the Trudeau's Green Slush Fund has been recovered. 330 million approved to board members in conflict of interest. 330 million. How many Canadians, how many people on the street, how many drug addicts could use the mental health support? How much do you think 330 million could do towards those things, as opposed to going to board members who already make money from just doing their jobs as they should? They shouldn't be making more, right? 60 million approved for ineligible projects. That's 390 mil, fam. Chair found guilty of breaking ethics law, funneling 220K into her own company. Zero of this money has been recovered, but it sits in their pockets. No one's in jail. Why? Again, I'll say this and I'll keep saying this. People can say they're not political. You pay taxes. You're political. Do you want to know why? But the politicians decide where that money goes for the country that you live in. Maybe right now healthcare is not a problem to you because, hey, you feel good, you're young, you feel good. Maybe, whatever, c'est la vie, until someone in your family is diagnosed with cancer and they're telling them, well, months until you can get in. And you're like, what the fuck? People are flying down to Mexico, driving down to the States to get cancer care. Then you go down to America and you hear about how bad their medical is. And they're like, well, I know people have to go down there to get better. What? They think it's better in Canada. Free healthcare. What's free? I know people, yes, it's free. And again, I will check my privilege in understanding other places of the world, but I'm saying what Canada used to be to where it is now and where our monies are going. Would you go to an accountant and drop off $20,000 of your money and just go, don't really care what you do with it? So why are we doing this with the Canadian government? Why aren't people more upset about this? Because they're disarming us. They're censoring us. They're putting us into poverty, making us having to work several jobs. They're taking mothers out of homes so they have to work. They're dividing the family unit because everyone has to work. Kids are going to daycare, can't be at home. Again, all those things can be your choices, and all those things could not be your choices, and you're forced into it. Mental health is plummeting because this once beautiful and amazing country, everyone is struggling. This is the most personal money I've ever made in my life, the smartest I have ever been. And I'm still like, what the fuck is going on? We're all just one paycheck away from being on the streets. That's why so many of us are so fucking concerned and understand what's going on in the homeless population, because we all know ourselves, our family members are just one paycheck away, one illness away from being on the streets. Is that the fucking Canada you grew up in? Is that the Canada you want your fucking kids to grow up in? Is that the Canada people, great, amazing immigrants are coming here for? No, we're all being gypped here. And it's not the left versus the fucking right. It's not color versus color. It's not men versus women versus whatever you fucking identify as. It's us against these fucking systems and barriers and restrictions and all that, and all levels of government that are holding us from being a community and working together. That's what I think. And that's what I want 2025 to be focused on. How the fuck do we get out of all of this regulation, all of this divide, and start seeing that we're actually very powerful together? And we have a lot of more commonality than anybody fucking even knows. We're just so stuck in ego and stuck in being right instead of just being, maybe I'm not right for a second, and just listening. Listening will fucking be the best education you will ever get. I know. I'm on episode 204, motherfuckers. And a lot of time I'm listening to myself. But even if I'm listening to myself, I'm reading other people's opinions. Okay, okay, okay. So that's just what I want to bring up in this episode of Keeping Up with Canada. Okay. I know that gun rights are very important to people and they have feels about it. How can we come to common ground? Does this make it better? Let's hear from the families. Is it making it better? Did you think it was better? Let's listen to the families of the people that were in these shootings. What did they need? What kind of support did they need? Can we put it there instead of just restricting lawful owners? Is that a thought? Abortion. Can we have some more understanding of what that is? What do women go through? What do they need in support of? When is it an appropriate time and when is a little extreme? What is education on the preventative measures of birth and being a mother and the beauty of it instead of the fear of all of that? Let's come together with everybody, from people that have miscarriages, that have IVF, that have abortions, all of that, that are fertile mothers, that aren't young, old, middle, in between, one kid, 1,000 kids. Let's talk. You know what I'm saying? Let's come together and talk. Community does, instead of arguing and belittling each other. And back to this fucking corporation of government that's just funding through their own shit. That's got to stop. I think that is somewhere we can all get on board with. I don't think anybody will disagree that this shit is fucking whack. Am I right? Anyways, guys, I feel like I did pretty good. I said it was going to be like half an hour 45. I think I nailed it. I hope these topics get you buzzing, get you conversationing. Hopefully you start some fights at Christmas dinner. I'm just kidding. Do not, if you are going to have a rough family dinner, do not bring this up at Christmas time, you guys. I understand sometimes it's a good way, but take a page out of How I Met Your Mother. Pause. You can argue about politics and your belief at all other time. Christmas and the holidays is such a beautiful time for people to put aside their differences, come together, and that could be with a ton of presents, zero presents, a nice fancy dinner, no dinner at all, watching movies, watching Christmas movies, doing your traditions, avoiding it altogether. Perhaps you're Jewish and that's not what you're doing. Perhaps you come from a different religion. Whatever it is in the holiday season, the last bit of the year, you do for you, because 2025 is around the corner and it is gonna get wild, kids. We thought the States had a crazy year. Well, guess what? Now it's time for it to be a little bit more Canadian, a little bit more poutine, a little bit more Tim Hortons. You know what I'm saying? But you guys, I appreciate you so, so much. This is going to be aired just a couple weeks before Christmas. So I hope that you're taking some time for you and your family, that you're remembering that this time of the season is not to keep up with the Joneses. Your kids, your family love you for being around you, not what you buy them or what's around the tree. Equally so, if you love to spoil your kids and this is the time of year that you do it, or your spouse, I am that person, then fucking go all out. I don't do it all year round. I wait for Christmas. So I love doing it this time of year. But I've had Christmases where we just exchanged hugs. You know what I'm saying? So just make sure that you're taking care of you and living for what's you and not what's on Pinterest and on social media, but what's for with your family within your home. we can take a break for this for a little bit and come back after Christmas in 2025. We can fucking get after it. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll be banned by then and maybe TikTok will be gone and who fucking knows? But I will still be here running my mouth somehow. And as always, guys, I appreciate you so, so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, send me a message if you want to be on an episode. I am planning for season 9 already, wrapping up season 8. I really, really appreciate you guys. If I love you all so much, we'll have one more episode before we launch out to the Christmas season, one more for 2024, and then we're on to one more month for 2025. Pause and then come back for season 9. I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much again. And until next time, guys, bye. Thank you guys so, so much for the support. I cannot thank you enough for being here. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please give me a follow at the Be Real Babe podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and Pinterest. You can also find me on Facebook at the Be Real Collective. Until next time, guys, bye!